Before we dive into this story of betrayal and heartbreak, hit that like button and support this channel. I really appreciate you. You know, sometimes love doesn't die in one big explosion. Sometimes it withers slowly until you're sleeping next to a stranger and pretending everything's fine for the sake of your child. That was our life. Amanda and I had been married for 6 years. We weren't perfect, but we had history. We had memories. And most importantly, we had Jacob, our son. He was our joy, the glue holding us together when things got rough. But even glue can crack when there's too much pressure. Our marriage had been going through a rough patch, arguments about money, about time, about who was doing more and who was doing less. There were nights she'd sleep on the couch, and mornings we'd barely say a word over breakfast. I thought we were just tired parents, trying to balance work, life, a kid, and our own dreams. But Amanda? She started pulling away. She began talking to a mutual friend of ours, Brian. Now, Brian had always been part of our friend circle, but suddenly he was texting her more than I was. She'd laugh at his jokes, share her feelings, and when I asked, "About it?" "He's just someone I vent to. You don't talk to me anymore." And maybe she had a point. Still, something didn't sit right. I remember walking past her on the couch one night and seeing his name flash on her phone. She quickly covered the screen. I didn't say anything. I wanted to believe she was just lonely, not disloyal. That's what love does to you. It makes you hope instead of see. When I got offered a work assignment overseas, I saw it as a way to fix things. Make more money. Come back with a plan. Be the provider. She supported it. Kissed me goodbye and said she'd miss me. I believed her. God help me. I believed her. Taking that overseas assignment felt like the right move for all of us. It wasn't just about the money. It was about space. I thought maybe a little distance would make Amanda realize what we were missing. That maybe she'd miss me again, need me again. She seemed supportive. She helped me pack, hugged me tight at the airport, and when I turned around before boarding, she was still standing there, smiling. I told myself, we're going to be okay. The job was intense. Different time zones, long hours, constant pressure, but I made it work. Every free moment I had, I'd call home, FaceTime with Jacob every night before bed, send Amanda voice notes, just say I missed her, sometimes just to hear her laugh. But slowly, her replies started to change. She used to answer in seconds, but now she takes hours to reply. She stopped video calling. Always said she was tired or not feeling well, said Jacob had already gone to bed. I felt the emotional distance growing faster than the miles between us. Still, I kept telling myself I was overthinking. Then one night, while I was having dinner alone in my hotel room, my phone rang. It was Amanda. She sounded off. Her voice cracked as she said, "I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." "You are pregnant?" I asked. I didn't know what to say at first. I was halfway across the world, and suddenly she hits me with this. But I gathered myself, smiled, told her congratulations, that I was happy, that this could be the blessing we needed to bring us back. Together. I thought about Jacob having a sibling, family game nights, crayon drawings on the fridge, a second heartbeat in our home, and for a few days, I let myself believe again. But that night, after the call ended, I just sat there staring at the wall. Something about the timing didn't add up. The way she said it. It didn't feel joyful. It felt guilty. I told myself, no, don't be that guy. Trust in her. Be a husband. Be a father. I promised her I'd wrap up the project early and be home as soon as possible. I even told my boss I was willing to cut the contract short. Because that's what love does, right? It makes you ignore the alarms, even when they're deafening. When I got back home, Amanda greeted me at the airport with Jacob in her arms. She smiled, hugged me and kissed me like everything was fine. And for a while, I let myself believe it. The house looked cleaner than I expected. She looked radiant, glowing even. Pregnancy suited her. I dove straight into my dad duties, played with Jacob, helped with homework, and read him to sleep every night. I cooked meals, cleaned the dishes, and gave Amanda foot rubs when her ankles were sore. I wanted her to rest as much as possible. She was carrying our child, after all. Amanda kept thanking, telling me how lucky she was, said I was doing everything right. But her eyes didn't match her words. They darted away when I looked too long. She avoided too much intimacy, always blaming nausea or fatigue. I didn't question it, not at first, because this was supposed to be a new chapter. A reset. She started going to more office events, networking parties, client dinners, Friday happy hours, all work-related, of course, and I supported it. I wanted her to have a life outside of motherhood. We had lost ourselves in the chaos before, and I didn't want that to happen again. But then, the whispers started. A buddy of mine, whose wife worked at the same firm as Amanda, pulled me aside after we bumped into each other at a gas station. "Hey man, no judgment, but you cool with Amanda hanging out with clients after hours?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Just, people talk. She left with one of the guys after the last function. Alone, to his house, apparently. I thought you knew." That night I barely slept. Next day, she'd said she was going to another client dinner, that they'd be discussing a partnership deal, said she might be home late. I had stayed up watching Jacob sleep, waiting for her to walk in. When she did, hours later, she kissed me goodnight without meeting my eyes. Suddenly, all the puzzle pieces were on the table. I just hadn't dared to look at the full picture. The next week, she had another event. She told me not to wait up. This time, I didn't. I called the nanny and asked her to watch Jacob. I threw on a hoodie, drove across town, and snuck into the venue where the event was being held. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what I expected to see. Maybe she really was just mingling with coworkers. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the moment I walked into that crowded room and scanned the dance floor, I knew. There she was, laughing, leaning into a man's chest, his hand on her lower back, her fingers tracing the buttons on his shirt. They weren't talking business. They were making out like teenagers at a batch party. And in that moment, my heart didn't just break, it turned to stone. I didn't wait. I couldn't control myself anymore. Didn't care who saw me. I pushed through the crowd, weaving past half-drunk coworkers and their fake laughs. All I saw was Amanda and the man she was practically glued to. He was some smooth-talking, Rolex-wearing corporate parasite. His hands were all over her. Her lips had just left his cheek, and the way she leaned in. It didn't look like a one-time thing. I walked right up, stood inches away, and said, "So this is your networking?" Amanda looked stunned. Her entire body stiffened like she'd just seen a ghost. The man, her so-called big-shot client, turned to me and muttered, "Is there a problem?" I ignored him. "You lied to me. Again." She tried to play dumb. "It's not what it seems." But I wasn't hearing it. Not this time. The man stepped between us and raised his hand like he thought he was in control. "Back off, man." "She said nothing's going on," I snapped. I shoved him hard. He stumbled backward and smashed right into the DJ booth. The entire console crashed, music cut, the crowd gasped, and just like that, all eyes were on us. Phones came out. People started recording. Amanda shouted my name, grabbing my arm, begging me to stop. "You're embarrassing me." I laughed bitterly. "Embarrassing you? You've been sleeping around while carrying a child that might not even be mine, and I'm the problem." The man climbed to his feet, rubbing his shoulder. "We didn't do anything." "Calm down." I turned on him. "You touched my wife. You kissed my wife. And I want to know if your wife knows where you are tonight?" That shut him up. Dead silence. Amanda's co-workers stood frozen, mouths hanging open, drinks half raised in disbelief. Some of them knew. You could see it in their eyes. I dragged Amanda out of there. She cried the entire drive home, said I misunderstood, that it was harmless flirting. Said she'd never slept with him, that she was just confused. She didn't feel attractive anymore. and he made her feel wanted. All I could hear was betrayal. We got home, and she locked herself in the bathroom. When she came out crying, she said, "I can't go back to that office now. Everyone saw. My career's ruined." And that's when I said it. Then maybe it's time we find out whose baby this really is. She looked like I'd slapped her. We're getting a paternity test. Now. No more pretending. No more lies. I had to know the truth because the woman I married, she wasn't standing in front of me anymore. The next morning, the house was silent. Amanda barely spoke. Jacob sat on the floor playing with his cars, completely unaware that the life he knew was unraveling in real time. I sat across from her at the kitchen table. The coffee in front of me went cold, untouched. "We're doing this today," I said quietly. "You, me, the baby. No more running." She nodded. No fight left in her. We drove in silence to the clinic. The nurse took Amanda in for a prenatal paternity test. I provided my sample. No small talk, no eye contact. While we waited in the lobby, she tried once to reach for my hand. I moved it away. That small gesture? It told her everything. The results would take a few days. Each minute felt like a lifetime. I watched her try to act normal around Jacob, forcing smiles, clinging to him like a life raft. At night I slept in the guest room. She'd knock softly, then just walk away. By the time the clinic called, I already knew the answer in my gut. The doctor's voice was calm, almost mechanical. "Mr. Carter, we've completed the prenatal paternity testing. Based on the fetal DNA analyzed, you are not the biological father." The words echoed in my head like a bomb going off in an empty room. I didn't speak. I just hung up. Amanda walked in, saw my face, and crumbled. "No, please, they have made a mistake. It's not my test." She dropped to the floor sobbing, begging, swearing it just happened once, saying she was confused, saying she didn't even think she could get pregnant again. I didn't care. She told me it was the same client, the one from the party. She said it was after a few drinks, and she didn't mean for it to go that far. She tried to flip it. "You were gone. I was alone. You left me." I stared at her. The audacity. I was working for this family. You turned your loneliness into infidelity, and now you want me to shoulder the blame? Still, a part of me had one more question. I ordered another test, for Jacob, because after one lie, how do you know anything is real? Those few days felt like reliving a funeral on loop. But the result? Jacob was mine, my son, my blood, my reason to fight through this storm. I held him tighter than I ever had that night. Amanda tried to speak again, tried to say, "We can move past this. You're his father. We can raise them both." I looked her in the eyes. "No, I'm raising my son. You? You can figure out how to raise the one you created out of betrayal. I got tested for STDs just to be sure. Thankfully, I was clean. But the damage? That was permanent." What would you have done in my shoes? If you are still here, hit that like button and show your support. It helps the channel more than you know. I filed for divorce 2 days after the final test came in. There was no dramatic argument, no emotional plea, just paperwork. I listed infidelity and irreconcilable betrayal as the reasons. Amanda didn't fight it. She couldn't. Not after everything she has done, but the consequences of her actions were just beginning to ripple outward. Word had spread fast after the office party incident, after she was caught publicly making out with a client, then dragged out by her furious husband while a dozen co-workers recorded the scene. It went viral internally. Some even shared the video anonymously online. She tried to return to work once. Her boss, who had previously supported her rise, politely suggested she take an extended leave. The client she cheated with had been quietly removed from the company's partnership roster. His own wife had found out after someone sent the footage. He lost everything: his marriage, his kids, and eventually his position. And Amanda, her name became office gossip. No one took her seriously anymore. No one invited her out, and her LinkedIn silent. She called me one night from her mother's house, crying into the phone. Everyone hates me. No one will even look at me. I didn't console her. Meanwhile, I focused on Jacob. I got full custody without much resistance. Amanda didn't have the emotional or financial stability to contest it, and frankly, she knew she had no moral ground left. I made sure Jacob's life stayed as normal as possible. He asked where Mommy went, and I told him the truth he could handle. Mommy made a big mistake, but you'll still get to see her sometimes. Amanda tried to set up a co-parenting schedule, but when she showed up, Jacob was distant. She wasn't his safe place anymore. She cried every time she dropped him off. The final blow came a month after our divorce was finalized. She called to say she was no longer pregnant. A miscarriage. She blamed the stress, the public shame, the isolation. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't wish pain on anyone, but I couldn't lie to myself either. There was a part of me that felt closure, not relief, not joy, but finality. Amanda was alone. No job, no reputation, no partner, no baby. Just consequences. She sent one final message. I ruined everything. I just wanted to feel loved again. I didn't reply. I looked over at Jacob, playing in the backyard with his toy trucks, sunlight in his hair, laughing. That was all I needed, and Amanda, she had already made her choice. I made my decision. There was no going back. Not just from the marriage, but from the man I used to be. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't waiting for answers, closure, or some dramatic redemption arc. I was done. The papers were signed. The past was behind me, and my focus? My only focus was on Jacob. I poured everything into being a better father. Bedtime stories, soccer practice, school pickups, Sunday pancakes. I made sure he never felt the weight of what had happened. He didn't ask about the baby anymore or his mom. When she did call, it was quiet, short, sometimes just, tell him I love him, but the trust was gone. Not just between us, but between her and her own son, and that was a grief she'd have to live with. As for me, I started rebuilding, took new contracts, started surrounding myself with people who lifted me up instead of dragging me through manipulation and guilt. And one day, when I was dropping Jacob off at school, I ran into one of Amanda's old co-workers. She looked at me, then said something I didn't expect. You did the right thing. Everyone saw the video. And honestly, you handled it better than most of us would have. It stuck with me, because for a long time I thought maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have stayed, fought harder. But the truth? You can't fight for someone who's already surrendered to someone else. Amanda made her decisions. She chose secrecy over honesty, desire over loyalty, temporary validation over permanent commitment. She burned the bridge and then blamed me for not crossing the flames to rescue. So I moved forward. And if you're watching this, let me say this as clearly as I can. You are not the villain for demanding respect. You are not toxic for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for walking away from someone who betrayed your love. Some betrayals don't deserve a second chance. Some people aren't sorry. They're just sorry they got caught. And when the DNA test confirmed the truth, it didn't destroy me. It freed me. So to anyone who's ever questioned their instincts, anyone who's ever been gaslit into silence or made to feel like they were the problem, trust yourself. A few months after the dust settled, life found a new rhythm. Jacob was thriving. I had peace, and Amanda had faded into the background. A ghost of a life I once lived. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. Until one day, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I ignored it. Then it rang again. This time, I picked up. Hi, it's Amanda's mother. Her voice trembled. She told me Amanda had checked herself into a psychiatric clinic. Severe depression, anxiety. She wasn't eating. She barely spoke. The loss of the baby, the divorce, the isolation. It had all come crashing down on her like a tidal wave she never saw coming. She talks about you and Jacob every day. I didn't know what to say. I thanked her for the call and hung up. Later that night, I stood at the edge of Jacob's bed, his tiny chest rising and falling, unaware of the storm swirling just outside his world. Part of me felt something. Not pity, not guilt, but a flicker of something I hadn't expected. Closure. I didn't hate Amanda anymore. I didn't wish her pain. But I didn't owe her my peace either. I chose not to visit. Instead, I sent a handwritten letter, through her mother. I hope you heal. I hope you find meaning in what's left. But you and I, we're a chapter that ended. Jacob deserves stability, and I deserve honesty. This is goodbye. A week later, her mother called again. Amanda had read the letter and broke down in tears. Then she did something none of us saw coming. She confessed everything, not just about the client, but about the mutual friend she'd reconnected with while I was overseas, the one she claimed was just someone to talk to. Turns out, he was the first affair, before the client, before the pregnancy, before the party. They had rekindled things, while I was thousands of miles away, trusting her. He'd even stayed overnight at our home once, while Jacob was asleep in the next room. She'd kept it secret all this time, hoping that the scandal with the client would overshadow the real betrayal. When I heard that, it didn't break me. It confirmed what I already knew deep down. She never stopped lying. She just ran out of room to hide. Like this video if you felt every twist. Comment below and share this story with your friends. Subscribe for more true stories of betrayal, revenge, and redemption, because sometimes the real twist isn't when they betray you, it's when they finally admit how long they've been doing it.